Also, more call about daily updates. So, now I'll show you made and subscribe, share, and like it. A plus na Mustapha Yusuf and BNI for and as a national no BNI NIB speaker release one because much letter command speaker say nkofobia na nsɛm bi a wɔde nsɛm bi ato dwa ma ɛsɛ NIB for here for further interrogation. And Kwame A plus charge the ball ne say Obabeka say allegedly obi a former government appointee bi a under Akufo-Addo no on his wo amesori won two and suspected cables bi a omo no constituency ana Mohammed Yusuf so charge nko na ni nyina ne say your fellow lawyer Martin Kpebu ma no cheche no say BNI and as a NIB speaker release on indirect arrest and as indirect detention because sana omujuma because of oye minister no never handcuff museo and as a young for bibi museo but indirect arrest and indirect detain yedo show no television nko see lawyer Masepebu and semana oka and as explanation or topic abehu charge say the ball Kwame A plus and Mustapha Yusuf and kind of former youth and sports minister. God bless you. Stay tuned. Zoom in straight to a year and 7 for comment. You made the last America.
Describes as false claim to the president as well to have the Auditor General removed. We won't get into that, but let's settle for Ghana Briefs. Raise questions about the limits to parliamentary immunity as provided in the 1992 Constitution. That's the fundamental question on the minds of many who saw this letter from the Speaker of Parliament earlier today. We have a copy of that letter. We got extracts of that letter, the details of it. It's going to put on the screen right now, but this is it. This is what the Speaker wrote to the National Intelligence Bureau, referring to the letter dated the 25th of March 2025 in respect of a request for the release of Mustapha Yusuf, the former youth sports minister, MP for Yagaba Kubori constituency, and Kwame Asari, or being popularly known as A+, the Goma Central Member of Parliament. The Speaker says, quote, I am directed by the Right Honourable Speaker to inform you that having regard to the limitation of Article 117 and 118 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, the existing protocols established with the security and intelligence agencies and also the public interest, Parliament in principle agrees to the request in the above matter. So take note of the two articles that this letter from the Speaker references, Article 117 and 118. We'll come back to that. According to the Right Honourable Speaker, he has directed the honourable members to make themselves available for the preliminary interaction with your officials, that's the NIB, National Intelligence Bureau officials, in Parliament on Monday, the 7th of April 2025 at 10 a.m. at the Sir Emmanuel Charles Quiz Conference Room at the office of the Speaker of Parliament. The honourable members will be requested to have their lawyers present at the interaction, and indeed they've given the official contacts of the legal services to the National Intelligence Bureau, and this letter was signed by the Clerk to Parliament, Ebenezer Ahoma Jetro there. And as a matter of fact, when this letter became public, a number of things really came up. Now, take notice of the two specific articles that this letter references, 117, 118. And we put out Article 117 so you understand why this has even found itself in the Speaker's letter. This is it. Immunity from service of process and arrest. I'm going to put it on the screen right now, and you follow us closely. The civil or criminal process coming from any court or place out of Parliament shall not be served on or executed in relation to the Speaker or a member or the Clerk to Parliament while he is on his way to, attending at, or returning from any proceedings of Parliament. And then you ask the question, Parliament is on recess, so then how will this apply? We're going to find out from a lawyer shortly. This essentially is what 117 says, that civil or criminal processes coming from any court or place, in this case coming from the National Intelligence Bureau, it's outside of Parliament, shall not be served on or executed in relation to the Speaker, that's number one, or a member of Parliament, number two, or the clerk to Parliament, while he is on his way to, attending at, or returning from any proceedings of Parliament. This same provision in the Constitution finds some semblance in the Standing Orders of Parliament, and this is it. This is what the Standing Orders of Parliament says, and specifically indicates what exactly the processes should be. The Order 24 of Parliament Standing Orders, this is it. A civil or criminal process coming from any court or place out of Parliament shall not be served on or executed in relation to the Speaker of Parliament or member or the clerk to Parliament while the Speaker, member, or the clerk is on the way to, attending at, or returning from any proceedings of Parliament. So taking this into consideration, then you marry that with what the Speaker has done right now. The Speaker, although gives that access to the National Intelligence Bureau to meet these members of Parliament, it is with a qualification that it must be within the presence of Parliament and then also in the presence of the lawyers of these members of Parliament. Martin Kwame is private legal practitioner. He's joining us on Zoom right now for a conversation on this. Well, Martin Kwame, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight.
Good evening. Mr. Kesi.
It's always good to have you. Now, and I'm bringing in on this point and the communication from the Speaker right now, taking into consideration the provisions in 117 and 118, the Speaker does give the NIB access to meet these members of Parliament, but it is within the presence of Parliament, specifically the Speaker's office, in the presence of their lawyers. How does this strike you?
Yeah, so it's further affirmation of the fact that, look, we are making giant strides in our constitutional governance. Making giant strides because, you see, I'm looking at those years where it was almost impossible to serve a member of Parliament. Yeah, Mr. Kansi, you heard me right. It was almost impossible. Listen, if an MP owed you money and you went to court, every attempt to serve the MP, you'll be told that, oh, he's on his way to Parliament or attending at Parliament or on his way from Parliament. Look, there's another case, an MP who was going through a divorce and didn't want his wife to get any of the properties. The frustration he gave the lawyers, look, he gave them a lot of headache. Every time, no, he was on his way either to Parliament or was returning or was in a committee of Parliament. Look, I can give you so many examples. So many would never be done. So looking at those years, and then today, you see, even before this particular letter the Speaker wrote, you know, earlier on, Speaker had agreed with the Chief Justice for members of Parliament to be served with court processes on certain days. That agreement, even though eventually, when it came to the 4-seat saga, in the last days, the Afenyo Markin versus Speaker of Parliament, etc., it didn't go well. But generally, I think that system has been working. So, as I said, if you consider what's pertaining today to those years, no, this is like a U-turn. We've done a U-turn. Now we've got to the other end. It's totally different, and we've gone in the right direction. So it's good, absolutely good. So that whilst members of Parliament are attending to parliamentary business, if there's opportunity, they can also be made to answer questions. They can also be held accountable for their actions, private actions that have no bearing on parliamentary work. So it's good. It's absolutely good for us, right? That way it keeps them in check, because when you don't make the members of parliament, etc., amenable to our court, our court's jurisdictions, etc., then it's like we are creating two classes of society, right? Which is not good, because we say yes, equality before the law. Yes, we reckon there are exceptions here and there, but when it comes to the MPs, considering their huge number, 270, we can't have a blanket immunity for them. No, the immunity pertains to only whilst they are attending to parliamentary business or on their way to parliament or on their way back. But we've seen that even that one is proving too much for our society. So the speaker had to agree to cut down and to say that, look, even when parliament is in session, you can serve members of parliament on certain days, which is good. And now the speaker is giving permission for A+ and another MP to attend upon our investigative bodies, which is also a huge step forward. So it's good.
But then again, question is, I mean, the MPs, if our parliament is on recess, so just for the understanding of one watching us right now, the Article 117 is quite clear as to where the immunity applies. As parliament is on recess now, do they necessarily have to be met in parliament and at the permission of the speaker?
Well, that one, you see, it also has a relatively short history, right? It's to make sure that, so in principle, I'm in favor of it. Let me answer that way first. In principle, I'm in favor. Now, the reason I'm in favor is that, look, let's say if you went to BNI, typically, and not only BNI, even police stations, and then, you know, sometimes when they find that arresting you would make them look, like we say in Ghanaian English, some way, there are other forms of arrest. Something like once you arrive there, they are not going to attend to you immediately. Sometimes you can sit for hours, 4 hours, 5 hours before the meeting would start. So you see, and once you've gone in there, you are not able to leave. So you see those kind of indirect forms of arrest happen. But when it's done at the in the presence of parliament, generally, well, I know they can also find ways of still delaying. But generally, I think the incentive to keep the MP waiting and so indirectly arresting the MP is curtailed, because that officer leaves his office and comes to the parliament. If he doesn't want to do the business quickly and go, it means that he rather would also have his own business stalling, the investigator. But let's say if it were in the NIB premises, they can leave you waiting and be doing other stuff for hours. Then when they are ready, they would come attend to you. But generally in the speakers, in the quiz conference room, the scope or the opportunity to do those things are drastically reduced. So there's that efficiency. And it's good with comment about this indirect form of arrest. The police use it a lot. Where, look, and when you are with lawyer, so you'll be there with your lawyer 5, 6 hours, they've not attended to you. It's an indirect form of arrest. So this is a good step so that the police and NIB and other institutions will begin to look at their standard operating procedures, etc., to cut down those kind of indirect forms of arrest.
Well, but the speaker's letter references 117, which talks about the immunities that members of parliament, the speaker, the clerk, are indeed given in the constitution. But the point is, this specific provision, council, refers specifically to when members of parliament, the clerk or the speaker, are on their way to, attending at, or returning from any proceedings of parliament. And I'm saying that parliament is on recess now. So does this article in its meaning, spirit, apply?
Yes, it applies. Good. It's good if you repeated this question. It applies because even when parliament is on recess, sometimes they have committee meetings. So committee meetings go on. Even earlier today, I think there was some business that related to committee meetings. You know, the MP who is said to have made some unfounded statements about cocaine in Ghana, etc. Petitions, for lack of a better word, the chairman of the committee, the Interior Committee,
yes.
James Agalga, etc.
Precisely.
And they did business. So because I heard in the news that Agalga had to respond and no, since
exactly.
So you see that they're on recess, but committee business goes on. So generally, while they're on recess, they are allowed to do committee business.
Well, but that said, now fundamental question is whether or not the location of this meeting actually matters, especially looking at the scheme of things. That you make reference to the fact that yes, there's parliamentary proceedings, but then again, the meeting aspect, the communication by the speaker is just within the speaker's office. How about that?
The meeting, sorry, maybe I lost the drift of the question. The meeting is in the speaker's office, the
yes.
Emmanuel Chris conference room.
Precisely.
Yes, and I'm sure I support it. I'm not sure, maybe I didn't get the question right.
Well, but why should the speaker be seen to be regulating the venue of this particular meeting? That's another question that has come up by the details of this letter.
Yeah, so let's repeat. Like, as I've told you, from a practical point of view, right, in practice, I told you that if you went to NIB or even police, CID headquarters, etc., because it's their office, generally they are in charge. And so there will be some strictures, ways and means they can use to delay you hours. Nobody will put handcuffs on your wrist so that you see that you've been arrested. No, nobody's going to put a handcuff. But they will use delay tactics. Let me speak Ghanaian English. Sir, it will be very clear to you after a few hours that they've indirectly arrested you. But there's no handcuff. No. But at that time, you are also not able to go. Because the moment you tell them that you want to leave, then they will tell you, oh, we are coming. Then somebody will go into a room, come back. Oh, is this boss who is coming? Give another 30 minutes. This. Look, they have various things they can do and to delay you on end. But when it happens in the parliament, this Emmanuel Chris conference room in the parliament, it helps to avoid those. Look, Mr. Kanse, you see, as I said, for me, the main thing we should celebrate is the fact that MPs can be made available so that they can be held accountable compared to yesteryears, those days where it was almost blanket. Anything the MP, I'm on my way to Parliament. Even when Parliament was already saying, there's a committee meeting, and there is that, and there's this. Look, so as I said, from experience, this is a vast improvement. But subsequently, if we're able to cure the mischief that the investigative body, some of them do have when you go to their offices, where they're able to arrest you indirectly, sure, this one wouldn't be a problem. Okay?
Right. Council, appreciate your time, and I thank you. Thank you very much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight, as always.
You're welcome.
Martin Pepe is private legal practitioner, and from our sources, specific references, at least per the Speaker's letter, was not given to the reason for this invitation of these two MPs by the National Intelligence Bureau, and by their practice, they will certainly not put it out. But from our sources, here's from the sources and what may have actually prompted this invitation to these two members of parliament. There's a recent threat to expose the identity of the ex-government official allegedly involved in Ahmed Swale's murder that was put out by Kwame Asariobing, A+, and then also you recall sometime last week put out that interception of some trucks carrying suspected missing cables belonging to the ECG in his constituency. In this whole matter of the ECG containers being misplaced, or as reported by the minister, missing at the ports, the content of it as well. And we're hearing that some two persons have also been arrested earlier today in relation to the contents of some of the containers belonging to the ECG that are nowhere to be found. Well, in the case of the former youth and sports minister, here's what we do know from our sources. His name was mentioned in this National Service Authority ghost name scandal, where he once served as executive director. His also reported involvement in controversy surrounding the budget and organization of the All Africa Games under his watch as sports minister. If you recall, this was a matter that was topical and may have also influenced this invitation that we're talking about. That this is one that we'll keep an eye on and see how things play out. But this is Ghana Tonight. Stay on the matters of security. Coming up next, government describes as false claim.
And then I think maybe I'm also going to like